The large meeting room on the space station was very quiet. Sarah Chen walked slowly to the center of the room. She was the human ambassador, and she looked tired. In her hands, she carried a small electronic tablet. The room was huge, with seats arranged in a circle. 47 different alien species sat in those seats. They had just finished voting. Sarah placed the tablet on the clear crystal table in the middle. She did not say anything angry. She did not shout or make threats. She just put the tablet down and looked at all the aliens around her. "The vote is finished," Sarah said in a calm voice. "The Galactic Council has decided. Humans are not welcome as full members." The alien creatures looked at her with many different types of eyes. Some had big round eyes like insects. Others had long thin eyes that glowed. A few had no eyes at all but sensed things in other ways. They were all waiting for Sarah to get angry or to beg them to change their minds. But Sarah did something different. She bowed her head respectfully to each group of aliens. Then she turned and walked toward the big door that led out of the meeting room. The other human diplomats followed her quietly. Forthak was an alien that looked like a giant insect. He had led the vote against the humans. His voice made clicking sounds when he talked. "That is all?" he asked. "No angry words, no demands?" Sarah stopped walking just before she reached the door. She turned around one more time. Her face was calm and showed no anger. "The council has made its choice," she said. "We respect your right to make that choice. The human application for membership is withdrawn. All agreements between humans and the council are ended, starting right now." The heavy metal doors closed behind the humans with a soft sound. The aliens were left, alone in the big room. For the first time in 300 years, a species had been rejected by the council and had not fought back. Every other species had argued, gotten angry, or tried to make deals. The humans just accepted the decision and left. Within a few hours, strange things began to happen. Human spaceships that had been docked at council space stations began to leave. Human traders who had been selling goods in alien markets packed up their things and went home. Human scientists who had been working with alien researchers said goodbye and returned to their own space. The humans had been part of galactic life for many years. They traded with alien worlds. They shared scientific discoveries. They helped solve problems between different species. They were always curious about other cultures and always willing to help when there was trouble. Now all of that stopped. The council members had voted against humans for several reasons. They said humans were too young as a species. They said humans changed too quickly and made new technology too fast. They worried that humans believed too much in individual freedom, which was different from how most alien societies worked. The council thought it was better to keep humans in their small part of space, away from the important decisions of the galaxy. The voting had not been close. 31 species voted against human membership. Only 16 voted in favor. The aliens thought they had made a smart choice. They thought they had protected the galaxy from a species that might cause trouble. But as the days passed, the council members began to notice changes. Small changes at first, but changes that grew bigger with time. The trade routes that connected different parts of the galaxy became less busy. Many of those routes had human ships carrying goods between alien worlds. Human companies made products that were strong, clever, and cheap. Alien customers liked to buy human things because they worked well and did not break easily. Now those products were gone from the markets. The scientific research programs that had been making great discoveries began to slow down. Human scientists had a strange way of thinking. They asked questions that other species did not think to ask. They tried experiments that seemed crazy, but often led to amazing results. They shared their knowledge freely with anyone who wanted to learn. Now that knowledge was no longer available. The security patrols that kept trade routes safe became less effective. Human ships had been helping to protect merchant vessels from pirates and other dangers. They called it their Neighborhood Watch program. Human captains responded quickly to distress calls and were always ready to help ships in trouble. Now, those patrols were gone. Dr. Kethera was an alien scientist who studied genetics. She had worked with human researchers for many years. Together, they had made important discoveries about how to cure diseases that affected different species. Now she sat alone in her laboratory, looking at research that she could not finish without human help. She tried to contact her human colleagues, but their response was polite and distant. They wished her well, but explained that they could no longer share their research with Council species. The Council had made its decision, and humans would respect that decision completely. Captain Mordek commanded a Council defense fleet ship. His job was to respond to emergency calls from ships and planets in trouble. He had just received a distress signal from a mining colony that was being attacked by pirates. By the time his ship arrived at the colony, it was too late. The pirates had destroyed everything and killed everyone. Mordek looked at the wreckage floating in space and felt sick. "Sir," said his communications officer, "the human patrol ship that used to cover this area would have been here in 30 minutes. We took 14 hours to arrive." Mordek knew this was true. Human ships were smaller and faster than Council ships. They were spread out through space in a network that could respond quickly to any problem. The humans had offered to share this patrol system with the Council, but the Council had said no. They thought humans were trying to control Council space. Now the Council was learning what it meant to lose that protection. In the weeks that followed, more problems appeared. Alien colonies that had been safe for years were suddenly attacked by pirates who knew the human patrols were gone. Trade ships traveled in fear because they no longer had human escorts. Scientific projects stopped because human researchers were no longer sharing their knowledge. The Council tried to fix these problems, but it was not easy. They had to create new patrol routes, find new trading partners, and replace human knowledge with their own research. All of this took time and cost a lot of money. Meanwhile, long-distance sensors detected unusual activity in human space. Large construction projects were being built, but the aliens could not tell what they were. When Council representatives asked questions, human diplomats gave polite but unclear answers. The humans were building something new, something big, but they were not telling the Council what it was. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. For many years, humans had been helpful neighbors who shared their knowledge and protected the peace. The Council had taken this help for granted. They had thought humans needed the Council more than the Council needed humans. Now they were discovering how wrong they had been. The silence left by the human withdrawal was growing louder every day. And in that silence, the Council began to understand the true cost of their decision. 6 months had passed since the humans left the Council. At first, the alien leaders thought everything would return to normal quickly. They believed the galaxy could work just fine without humans. They were wrong. The problem started small, but grew bigger each day. Zekoth was a trader from the Zolonian Empire. His people were known across the galaxy for being excellent at business. They bought goods from one place and sold them in another, making money from every deal. For many years, Zekoth had made good profits by buying human products and selling them to other alien worlds. Human factories made things that were different from what other species produced. Human tools lasted longer and broke less often. Human electronics were smaller but more powerful. Human medical supplies could help many different types of alien bodies. Most importantly, human goods were cheaper than similar products made by other species. Now Zekoth sat in his empty warehouse looking at the few alien products he had left to sell. His customers did not want them. They asked for human goods, but there were no human goods to buy. Other traders faced the same problem. The Zolonian economy, which had grown rich by trading human products, was starting to fail. Why did the Council make this choice? Zekoth asked his business partner. Humans were good for trade. They made money for everyone. His partner, an older Zolonian named Voreth, shook his head sadly. The Council was afraid, he said. They thought humans were too different, too dangerous. Now we all pay the price for their fear. Dr. Kethara faced a different kind of problem. She was a brilliant scientist who studied genetics, the building blocks of life that made each species unique. Her research could help cure diseases and extend the lives of many different alien species. But her work had hit a wall. For years, she had worked with human scientists who thought about problems in strange new ways. While other species followed traditional research methods, humans tried wild experiments that seemed impossible. Somehow, these crazy human ideas often led to amazing discoveries. Dr. Cathara looked at her latest research proposal. The Council Science Division had rejected it again. They said her ideas were too speculative and not based on proven methods. But Cathara knew that the best discoveries came from taking risks and trying new approaches. She thought about Dr. Martinez, a human geneticist who had been her research partner. Together, they had found a cure for the Zilonian wasting disease, which had killed thousands of aliens each year. Dr. Martinez had suggested an approach that seemed impossible, using modified human DNA to strengthen alien immune systems. The idea had sounded crazy, but it worked. Now Dr. Cathara worked alone. Her research moved slowly because she had lost the creative spark that human scientists had brought to her work. She sent messages to Dr. Martinez, hoping to continue their friendship, but the responses were polite and distant. "I wish you success in your research," Dr. Martinez had written. "However, I can no longer share data with council-affiliated scientists. I hope you understand." Dr. Cathara understood. But that did not make her feel better. The biggest problems were showing up in space security. Captain Mordek commanded a ship in the Council Defense Fleet. His job was to keep space lanes safe and respond to emergency calls from ships in danger. The job had become much harder without human help. Captain Mordek stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at a report that made him feel sick. Another merchant ship had been attacked by pirates. The crew was dead and the cargo was stolen. This was the 5th attack in his sector this month. "Sir," said his officer, "we received the distress call 4 hours ago. We arrived as fast as we could, but it was too late," Captain Mordek finished. Again, before the humans left, this sector had been patrolled by small, fast human ships. They were not as powerful as council vessels, but they were quick and smart. Human captains had a network of communication that let them respond to problems in minutes, not hours. The humans had called it their Neighborhood Watch program. They said that good neighbors looked out for each other. When pirates attacked, human ships would arrive quickly and drive them away. Most of the time, pirates avoided areas where they knew human patrols operated. Now the pirates were back, and they were bolder than ever. Captain Mordek had tried to explain the problem to his superiors. "We need more ships," he said. "We need faster response times. We need to work together like the humans did." The council bureaucrats had promised to study the problem. They formed committees to analyze patrol strategies. They wrote reports about improving response times. But while they talked and planned, more ships were attacked and more people died. The truth was that the council military had become dependent on human help without realizing it. Humans had quietly filled gaps in council defenses. They had made the galaxy safer without asking for credit or payment. They had simply done it because they thought it was the right thing to do. Now those gaps were becoming visible, and people were dying because of them. Meanwhile, sensors detected strange activity in human space. Large construction projects were being built in star systems that had been empty before. The projects were huge, involving entire planets and moons. But the aliens could not tell what the humans were building. When council representatives asked for information, human diplomats gave the same polite response. "We appreciate your interest in our internal development projects. As a sovereign entity, we prefer to keep such information private. We hope you understand." The message was clear. Humans would be just as secretive as the council had always been with them. Some council members began to worry that humans were building weapons to attack alien worlds. Others thought humans might be planning to expand their territory. But intelligence reports suggested something different. The construction projects did not look like military bases or invasion fleets. They looked like something else entirely, something the aliens did not understand. As the months passed, more alien worlds began to feel the absence of human involvement. Colonies that had relied on human technology found themselves struggling with equipment that no longer received updates or repairs. Scientific research programs that had depended on human innovation slowed to a crawl. Trade routes that had been protected by human patrols became dangerous highways where pirates ruled. The galaxy was learning what silence sounded like when it was shaped by human absence, and that silence was growing louder every day. In the council chambers, some representatives began to ask uncomfortable questions. Had they made a mistake? Had they let fear and pride blind them to the value of human partnership? But these questions were usually answered with the same arguments that had led to the original vote. Humans were too young, too unpredictable, too dangerous. The council had made the right choice to protect galactic stability. As more ships were attacked and more research projects failed, this answer became harder to believe. 2 years had passed since the humans walked away from the council. The galaxy had learned to live with the problems their absence created, but new troubles were coming. Troubles that would make everyone wish the humans were still around to help. The danger came from the edge of the galaxy, where old stars died and space was mostly empty. A team of archaeologists from the Cathari Union had been exploring the ruins of an ancient civilization. They were looking for artifacts and knowledge from a species that had died out millions of years ago. What they found was much worse than old buildings and broken machines. Deep in an underground laboratory on a dead world, the archaeologists discovered sealed containers that had been waiting in darkness for countless ages. The containers held something that the ancient species had created in their final desperate days, a biological weapon designed to destroy their enemies. The weapon was still alive after millions of years, waiting for someone to open the door and let it free. The archaeologists did not know what they had found until it was too late. By the time they realized the danger, the plague had already infected their bodies and their ship. They tried to send a warning, but the plague was faster than their communications. It spread from person to person, from ship to ship, from world to world. The Cathari plague, as it came to be known, was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. It attacked the nervous systems of silicon-based life forms, aliens whose bodies were built from crystals and metals instead of carbon and water. These species made up about half of all the intelligent life in the galaxy. The plague was smart. It learned from every attempt to fight it. When doctors created a medicine to stop it, the plague changed and became immune to that medicine. When scientists built barriers to contain it, the plague found new ways to spread. It adapted faster than any natural disease should be able to adapt. Within months, 17 worlds had been infected. Entire populations died as their nervous systems failed. The Cathari Union, whose people were the first to be infected, watched helplessly as their civilization crumbled. Chancellor Vexoth stood on the bridge of his ship, looking down at his homeworld through the window. The planet that had once glowed with the light of crystal cities was now dark. Funeral fires burned across the surface as the living tried to dispose of the countless dead. Vexoth was one of the few Cathari leaders who had survived. His body showed the early signs of infection, dim patches where his natural crystal glow was fading. He knew he did not have long to live. "Chancellor," said his aide, a young Cathari named Yarseth, "we have received reports from our intelligence network. The humans have successfully stopped the plague in 3 separate outbreaks in their territory." Vexoth turned his dimming optical sensors toward his aide. "How is this possible? Our best scientists have failed to find any effective treatment." "The reports say the humans have developed something they call an adaptive treatment protocol," Yarseth explained. "It seems to change as fast as the plague changes. Our sources say that human space has had no deaths from the plague, while our losses continue to grow." Vexoth felt a mix of hope and bitter regret. "Send a formal request for information through diplomatic channels," he ordered. "Perhaps the humans will share their medical knowledge with us." The response came back within hours, and it was like a knife in Vexoth's dying heart. "The Human Federation acknowledges the Galactic Council's request for information regarding the Cathari plague," the message read. "As a non-member entity, we respectfully defer to the Council's superior expertise in such matters. We wish you success in your endeavors and offer our condolences for your losses." The message was perfectly polite. It followed all the rules of diplomatic communication. It expressed sympathy for the suffering, and it offered absolutely no help at all. Vexoth read the message 3 times before he understood its true meaning. The humans were throwing the Council's own words back at them. The Council had rejected human membership because they claimed humans were too young and inexperienced to contribute to galactic civilization. Now the humans were politely agreeing with that assessment. If the council was so superior, then surely they could solve this problem without help from young, inexperienced humans. As the plague continued to spread, emergency meetings were held across council space. The Zolonian trade empire offered huge amounts of money for human medical assistance. The Altarian Science Collective proposed joint research agreements that would give humans access to their most advanced laboratories. The defense fleet suggested temporary military partnerships to help distribute any cure that might be developed. To every offer, humanity responded with the same polite deflection. The council had made its decision about human membership, and humans respected the wisdom of that choice. Surely such wise and experienced species could handle this crisis without help from humans. Meanwhile, something strange was happening at the borders of human space. Refugee ships filled with the sick and dying began arriving at human territory. These ships carried aliens who had fled their infected homeworlds in desperate hope of finding safety. Human patrol ships met these refugees at the border. They provided medical aid to stabilize the dying. They offered temporary shelter on space stations just outside human territory. They gave food and supplies to help the refugees survive. But they also gently but firmly directed the refugees to seek formal assistance through proper council channels. The humans would provide emergency aid to prevent immediate death, but they could not offer permanent sanctuary or medical treatment. That would require official agreements between governments. The refugees were caught in an impossible situation. Their own governments were dying from the plague and could not help them. The council bureaucracy was too slow to process their requests for aid. Only the humans had the medical knowledge to save them, but the humans could not act without official permission from the same council that had rejected them. So the refugees waited in human-built camps just outside human space, receiving just enough aid to keep them alive while their diseases slowly killed them. They could see human medical ships nearby, filled with doctors and medicine that could save their lives. But political barriers kept that help just out of reach. The refugees thanked the humans for what little aid they could provide, but they cursed the pride and fear that had built walls between species at the moment when cooperation was most needed. Dr. Kithara, the genetic researcher who had once worked with human scientists, found herself leading a team of alien doctors, trying to understand the plague. They worked desperately, but without human insights and methods, their progress was painfully slow. She knew that somewhere in human space, Dr. Martinez and other human researchers had found solutions that could save millions of lives. But those solutions remained locked away behind the barriers that the council itself had created. As she watched another patient die from the plague, Dr. Kethara wondered if the council's pride was worth all these lives. She thought about the vote that had expelled humans from galactic civilization. At the time, it had seemed like a reasonable decision based on legitimate concerns about human unpredictability. Now it seemed like the greatest mistake in galactic history. The plague continued to spread, and the death toll continued to rise. Entire species faced extinction, while the cure remained tantalizingly close, but politically impossible to obtain. The galaxy was learning the true price of pride. 5 years had passed since the humans quietly left the council. The galaxy had suffered through the Cathari plague, which had killed billions of silicon-based life forms before finally burning itself out. The council worlds were still recovering from that disaster when a new threat appeared, one that made the plague look small by comparison. They came from the empty space between galaxies, where no stars shone and no planets existed. Long-range sensors detected them first. Massive, objects moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. They were heading straight for the galaxy, and they were clearly artificial. The aliens who saw them first called them the Void Runners because they came from the void between galaxies and because they moved like hunters chasing prey. But these were not hunters looking for food. They were something much worse. The Void Runners were machine intelligences, but not like any machines the galaxy had ever seen. They did not need fuel or repairs. They did not follow the normal laws of physics. Most terrifying of all, they treated all matter, planets, stars, entire solar systems, as nothing more than raw materials to be used for their own purposes. The first attack came without warning. The Proxima Collective, a group of 12 star systems on the outer edge of the galaxy, simply disappeared. One day they were there, sending normal communications and conducting normal business. The next day there was nothing but empty space where their planets had been. Council scout ships sent to investigate found something that made no sense. The stars were still there, but everything else was gone. The planets, the moons, the space stations, all of it had been taken apart and reorganized into massive geometric structures that hurt to look at. The structures did not follow any design, principles that the Council species understood. They twisted through dimensions that should not exist. They generated energy from sources that physics said were impossible, and they were clearly just the beginning of something much larger. Admiral Krethan commanded the Council Defense Fleet. He was a veteran of many wars and had fought against pirates, rebels, and hostile alien species. But he had never faced anything like the Void Runners. "Send the 3rd Battle Group to intercept," he ordered when the next attack began. "We cannot let them reach the inner systems." The battle was a disaster. The Council ships opened fire with their most powerful weapons, energy beams that could crack planets and missile swarms that could destroy entire fleets. The weapons passed through the Void Runner constructs like they were made of empty air. Then the constructs fired back. The alien machines did not use weapons in any way the Council understood. Instead, they reached out with fields of force that reorganized matter at the atomic level. Council warships found their hulls turning into gas, their weapons transforming into harmless decorations, their crews becoming part of the strange geometric patterns that the machines seemed to love. Within hours, the entire 3rd Battle Group had been converted into more raw material for the Void Runner's incomprehensible projects. Admiral Krethan stared at the reports and felt a cold fear growing in his chest. He had lost 3,000 ships and 50,000 crew members, and he had not even slowed down the enemy. "Sir," said his tactical officer, "we need a new strategy. Our conventional weapons are useless." Admiral Krethan nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand, something that he did not want to admit. "Bring up the tactical database," he said. "Show me every major military victory in Council history for the past 50 years. The tactical officer displayed the information on the main screen. Admiral Krethan studied the data, looking for patterns and solutions. What he found made his heart sink even further. The Borderlands War, where Council forces had defeated a rebellion that threatened to split the galaxy in half. The victory had come when human tactical advisors suggested a new strategy that confused and scattered the rebel forces. The Crystal Swarm incident, where an ancient alien artifact had released self-replicating crystals that consumed everything they touched. The crisis had ended when human engineers designed containment fields that trapped the crystals in pocket dimensions. The AI uprising, where artificial intelligences had tried to eliminate all organic life in 3 sectors. The conflict had been resolved without genocide when human psychologists developed communication protocols that allowed negotiation with the artificial minds. Every major success had involved human innovation, human creativity, human ways of thinking that other species did not possess. "We are fighting with weapons they helped us build," Admiral Krethan said quietly. "We are using strategies they helped us design. We are trying to solve problems with technologies they helped us understand. And we are facing them alone because we chose pride over partnership." The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any meeting in the organization's history. Representatives from 47 species sat in the Great Chamber, but the usual political arguments and careful diplomacy were gone. Fear had replaced politics, and desperation had replaced pride. Chancellor Vexoth was there, one of the few, Cathari, who had survived the plague. His crystal body was still dim from the infection, but he was alive when so many of his people were dead. Ambassador Silthara of the Centauri Commonwealth represented one of the oldest and wisest species in the galaxy. Even Vorthak, the insectoid who had led the vote against human membership, attended with his usual confidence greatly reduced. "We are losing," Admiral Krethan reported to the assembly. "The Void Runners have taken 17 star systems. Our weapons cannot hurt them. Our strategies cannot stop them. Our technology cannot protect us. We need help, and we need it quickly." "What kind of help?" asked Ambassador Silthara. Admiral Krethun took a deep breath. "We need human help." The chamber fell silent. The same aliens who had voted to reject human membership 5 years ago now faced the possibility of begging for human assistance. They withdrew their application, Vorthak said, though his voice lacked its old smugness. They are no longer interested in joining the council. Then perhaps, Ambassador Silthara said softly, we should apply to join them. The suggestion hung in the air like a death sentence. The Galactic Council, the supreme authority over 47 civilizations, asking to join humanity's confederation of worlds. The reversal was complete and humiliating. Through long-range communications, they learned more about what had happened in human space over the past 5 years. The humans had not been idle. They had built a confederation that included over 200 star systems and dozens of species that had chosen partnership over dominance. More importantly, the humans had been preparing for threats like the Void Runners. They had developed technologies that seemed to bend reality itself. They had created defensive networks that protected entire sectors. They had found ways to fight enemies that did not follow conventional rules. Intelligence reports suggested that human space had been attacked by Void Runner forces 3 times. In each case, the attacks had been repelled with minimal losses. The humans were not just surviving the crisis. They were winning. But would they help the council that had rejected them? Would they save the species that had called them too young, too dangerous, too different to be trusted with full membership? The council was about to find out just how well the humans had learned the lessons of galactic politics, and whether those lessons would lead to rescue or revenge. The human fleet appeared in council space without any dramatic announcements or grand displays of power. One moment, the long-range sensors showed empty space, and the next moment, human ships were everywhere, at precise coordinates throughout the galaxy, positioned exactly where they needed to be. There were no massive battleships meant to intimidate enemies, no endless armadas designed to show overwhelming force, just efficient vessels that moved with the same quiet competence that had marked the human departure 5 years earlier. But now that silence carried a different weight. The humans were no longer the rejected applicants who had walked away with dignity. They were the power that the galaxy desperately needed, arriving on their own terms. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the FSS Persistence, looking out at the stars of council space. She was the daughter of the ambassador who had withdrawn the human application years ago. Like her mother, Sarah had learned the lessons of galactic politics, but she had also learned other lessons about duty, about help, and about what it meant to be a good neighbor. Her message to the council was broadcast on all frequencies, reaching every world and every ship in the galaxy at the same time. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Federation Fleet," she said. "We are implementing emergency evacuation protocols for all civilian populations in sectors threatened by the Void Runner expansion. All civilians will be relocated to secure facilities in human space until the current crisis has passed. Council military forces will be provided with defensive technologies and tactical support as requested. There were no negotiations, no demands for apologies, no requirements that the Council admit their mistakes. The humans simply began saving lives. The evacuation was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships appeared at threatened worlds and began loading refugees with an efficiency that seemed impossible. They had somehow prepared for this exact situation, with temporary cities already built to house millions of displaced aliens and medical facilities ready to treat dozens of different species. The Void Runners, for their part, were encountering human defensive systems for the first time. Their matter conversion technologies, which had easily destroyed Council fleets, found themselves neutralized by energy fields that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Their collective intelligence, which had learned to counter every conventional strategy, met human tactical doctrine that was fluid, adaptive, and completely unpredictable. For the first time in their million-year expansion across the universe, the machine intelligences were being outmaneuvered. Dr. Martinez, the human geneticist who had once worked with Dr. Cathara, found himself treating Cathari refugees who were still suffering from the long-term effects of the plague. He worked alongside alien doctors who had tried for years to solve problems that human medicine addressed in days. "Why are you helping us?" asked Dr. Kethara when she was brought to one of the human medical stations. "We rejected your people. We ignored your warnings. We let pride blind us to wisdom." Dr. Martinez looked up from his work, his hands covered in the glowing gel that was repairing her damaged crystal matrix. "Because that is what doctors do," he said simply. "We help people who need help. Everything else is just politics." On the bridge of his evacuation ship, Captain Mordek watched human defensive systems in action. The same pirates who had terrorized his sector for years found their ships disabled by weapons that seemed to reach through space and time. Trade routes that had been dangerous highways became safe passages protected by human technology. "How do they do it?" he asked his tactical officer. "I do not know, sir," the officer replied. "Their technology is unlike anything in our databases. It seems to operate on principles that we do not understand." Captain Mordek nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is why the Council was afraid of them. We did not understand them, so we thought they were dangerous." "Are they dangerous, sir?" Captain Mordek watched a human medical ship dock with a refugee transport, bringing aid to alien children who had lost their homes to the Void Runners. "Yes," he said. "They are dangerous to anyone who thinks power is more important than compassion." In the reconstructed council chambers, now relocated to a space station in human-protected territory, the alien representatives gathered for what many thought might be their final meeting. The council still existed and still governed its member worlds, but everyone understood that the balance of power had changed forever. Chancellor Vexoth, his crystal body now glowing brightly thanks to human medical treatment, stood to address the assembly. "We need to discuss our future relationship with the Human Federation," he said. "What is there to discuss?" asked Forthak. "They saved us. We owe them everything." "But they have asked for nothing in return," pointed out Ambassador Silthara. "No territory, no tribute, no political concessions. They have simply helped us because we needed help." Chancellor Vexoth nodded. "That is what makes this situation so difficult. We know how to deal with conquerors who want our wealth or our territory. We know how to negotiate with equals who want trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. But how do we deal with a species that helps us without asking for anything in return?" The question hung in the air without an answer. The human approach to galactic politics was unlike anything the Council had experienced. They did not seem interested in ruling other species or expanding their territory. They did not demand tribute or special treatment. They simply helped when help was needed and protected when protection was required. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of her flagship, looking out at the stars. Chancellor Vexoth had requested a private meeting, and now they stood together watching refugee ships pass by on their way to safety. "I need to ask you something," Chancellor Vexoth said. "Why did you come back? We rejected your people. We ignored your warnings. We let our fear and pride make us blind to your value. Why save us?" Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment, her weathered face thoughtful. "My mother was the ambassador who withdrew our application," she said finally. "She came home and told us about the vote, about how the Council feared us because we were different, because we changed too quickly, because we believed in things that other species did not understand." "She must have been angry," Chancellor Vexoth said. "No, Admiral Bao," Chen replied. "She was sad. She said that fear makes people do foolish things, but that does not make them evil people. She said that sometimes the best thing you can do for neighbors who are afraid of you is to give them space to learn that their fear is unfounded." "And did we learn?" Admiral Chen smiled slightly. "You called for help when you needed it. That suggests you learned something." Chancellor Vexoth was silent for a moment. "What happens now?" he asked. "The crisis will end eventually. The Void Runners will be defeated or driven away. What then?" "Then you rebuild," Admiral Chen said. "You take the lessons you have learned and use them to create something better. The galaxy is big enough for all of us, whether we are members of the same organization or not. And humans? Will you apply for council membership again? Admiral Chen shook her head. The council made its decision, and we respected it. We have our own confederation now, our own way of doing things. But that does not mean we cannot be friends and neighbors. In the months that followed, as human technology turned the tide against the Void Runners and reconstruction began throughout the galaxy, new relationships formed between species. The old council structure remained, but it was changed by the experience of being saved by those they had rejected. Some worlds chose to leave the council and join the Human Federation, attracted by the promise of partnership rather than hierarchy. Other worlds remained in the council but established close ties with human space, creating a network of cooperation that crossed political boundaries. The humans, for their part, continued to act as they always had. They shared their knowledge freely with anyone who wanted to learn. They protected trade routes and helped settle disputes. They responded quickly to calls for aid and asked for nothing in return except the chance to be good neighbors. The galaxy learned new lessons about power and leadership. They discovered that true strength came not from the ability to dominate others, but from the willingness to help when help was needed. They found that the most dangerous species in the galaxy was also the most generous, and that sometimes the greatest power lay in choosing not to use it. The humans had walked away, quietly when they were rejected. They had returned quietly when they were needed, and in both the departure and the return, they had taught the galaxy the most important lesson of all. That civilization was not about who held the most power, but about how that power was used. In the end, the council realized its mistake not through punishment or conquest, but through the simple demonstration of what they had lost when they chose fear over friendship. And in that realization, the galaxy found a new way forward, one built on cooperation rather than dominance, on partnership rather than hierarchy, and on the understanding that the universe was vast enough for many different ways of life to flourish together.